Day, marching for peace and solidarity. See, occupiers are also picking up trash, trying to clean up the community along our march.
We all need somebody to we might have a problem that I understand. We all need somebody. Lead on me. We're gonna stop.
The people raised $25 million. This money
is supposed to go towards arts and education.
Arts and education.
Arts and education for who?
Arts and education for who?
When 75% of Richmond public school students live below the poverty line. We are cutting $50 million to Richmond's public schools. Why are we paying for a building most of us can't afford to go to?
Occupy RBA!
The union makes us
Way too much.
Everybody hear me?
Can everybody hear me?
This is kind of long,
This is kind of long.
so it'd be easier if I didn't have mic check.
So it'd be easier if I didn't have money check.
Can everybody hear me?
Can everybody hear me?
Can you hear me in the back?
All right, in the back.
This is the United States District Court, Eastern District of Virginia. On the morning of May 7th, 2008, construction workers arrived at the nearly finished federal courthouse, this building. Shortly thereafter, federal immigration agents and state police descended on the site to raid the workplace in search of people whose only crime was the administrative infraction of not having a work visa. 7 hours of threats, violence, and human rights violations on part of the federal agents resulted in 33 people being locked up in holding cells they themselves built. The law requires any corporation hiring workers for a federal work site to carry out an extensive background check. But conveniently, the raid was timed that these 33 workers received an order of deportation instead of their final paychecks.
Boo!
Boo! The United States has 5% of the world's population, but it has almost a quarter of the world's prisoners. 7.2 million people and growing are on probation, in jails, prison, or on parole. 3.2% of all U.S. adult residents, 1 in every 31 adults is in prison or in one of those facilities in some sort of restraint. It costs an average of $30,000 a year to incarcerate an inmate in the prisons in Richmond, in Virginia. It costs $3 million to execute someone. Yeah. The Virginia Department of Corrections has an annual budget exceeding $1 billion. The state's largest agency with more than 13,759 employees. Yeah, it is insane. We have more people in prison than any other nation in the world. 60% of offenders in local jails were racial or ethnic minorities. a statistic that has not changed in the past decade. Nearly 4.5% of black men, nearly 2% of Hispanic men, and only 0.7% of white men nationwide were in jails or in prison.
Shame. Most for nonviolent crimes.
Yeah, by incarcerating people for minor violations and petty drug offenses, we are draining our resources of human capital. These nonviolent criminals are responding to a society that has ostracized them based on race, gender, and class, etc. When struggling to pay bills, send your kids to college, or simply bring food home, we resort to simple acts of survival. Most people incarcerated are caring individuals that have no desire for violence towards a community that allows everyone a fair voice and reciprocates with care and love. Instead, we see an economic system exploiting political influence to incarcerate people for profit. If we live in a society that was truly just, the prison industrial complex would not need to exist. Let's move.
Third world democracy! First world country! Third world democracy! First world country! Third world democracy!
What are you gonna do?
Stay out of the streets.
Whose streets?
Our streets!
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 Our streets! Our streets!
Welcome to the house that slave labor built.
Welcome to the house that slave labor built!
And in January, mid-January, the General Assembly will meet. And they will start to work. To implement the state budget. That Governor McDonald will announce on December 19th. By state law, the budget has to be balanced. So guess whose backs? The governor wants to balance the budget on. He wants to lay off state workers. Free state worker salaries. Reduce state worker pensions. Reduce aid to the cities. Reduce support for public education. But he will not cut the budget for the prisons. He will not cut the budget for the police. He won't even close down the one state agency that promotes state trade in a particular country. And that is the Virginia Israel Advisory Board. They won't even cut the state money that goes to support the cleaning up of the Robert E. Lee statue on Monument Avenue. We say no. Don't balance the budget. On the backs of Virginia's workers. About January 14th. For the Virginia People's Assembly. March back here. In the hundreds. And enforce that demand.
I got a lot to say.
I've got a lot to
I'll
say.
try to keep it as brief as possible.
I'll try to keep it as brief as
I
possible.
won't need a mic check. So I'm just going to begin.
So I'm just going to begin.
My name is Jonathan Lewis. I'm a student at BCU. I major in environmental studies and business. I am not against banks. Banks were made to save our money and help it grow. And they have worked well in the past in the interest of the consumer. That's been hard recently due to the creation of plutocracy that has formed by these banks turning into corporate entities by absorbing all these other smaller independent banks that were just isolated to individual states. But I'm not against corporations either. They have the right to make the money they want. It's natural selection. It's survival of the fittest. They have the right to make the money they make as long as they abide by the principles of the marketing concept, which includes focusing on consumer wants and needs to distinguish products from competitors' offerings, and integrating all the organization's activities to satisfy these wants, and most importantly, achieving the organization's long-term goals by satisfying customer wants and needs legally and responsibly. So why are we here? Because they are not saving our money. They are not meeting our wants and needs, and they are not doing business legally and responsibly.
Know it.
So you may be, excuse me. So you may be asking, how did this all happen? It happened by the deregulation of banks in the past 3 decades, starting in the 1980s through the early 2000s. Back there. Yeah. But it's all because of the Great Depression and the regulations that were instituted post-Great Depression to help control the banking system and stop the reckless investing and spending of people's money. So that's where you get the Glass-Steagall Act, which was implemented in 1933. Passed in 1933 in response to the Great Depression, the Glass-Steagall Act separated investment, insurance, and commercial banking activities. Prior to the Great Depression, banks were able to use depositors' money to buy stocks as well as other investment activities. Banks became greedy, taking part in increasingly risky activities. When the stock market crashed in 1929, so did the banks because much of their depositors' money was invested in stocks. So you have this period of regulation up pretty much until the 1960s. And it was great. Banks were doing their job. There were thousands of individual banks. About, let me check real quick. There was about
12,000.
Yeah, 12 to 13,000 individual banks in the United States. But that all started to dissipate as soon as deregulation began in the 1980s.
Bring it back.
Starting with the Depository Institution Deregulation and Monetary Control Act of 1980. This act invalidated all limitations on the rates of interest which are payable on depositor-on accounts, and also authorized the transaction of these interest-bearing accounts. Hence, banks selling off people's mortgages to investment firms so they don't have to wait for the mortgages to mature over the life of the mortgage. Before the deregulation, mortgages were amortized, meaning they paid individual installments over the life of the loan, which is usually 30 years. And after that, these banks would just sell them off without thinking of the backlash or exactly who was qualified to get these loans in the first place. So then came the mortgage crisis, which happened mostly due to the biggest piece of deregulation financially in our history, which was the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act. Widely accepted as the main cause of the financial crisis, the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act tore down all barriers between investment firms, commercial banks, and insurance companies, allowing them to merge and take part in each other's business practices. It also limited private protections against the disclosure of personal financial information. This act repealed what was left of the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, which really protected the consumers. So you may be asking, what exactly were the activities that these banks were doing that was so illegal and so wrong? Mostly it was this predatory lending, where they would mislead just about anybody they could who wanted a mortgage into getting a mortgage and then ending up getting ridiculous balloon payments which they could have no possibility of affording, and then end up defaulting on the mortgages. And this happened on a mass scale, hence the low mortgage crisis. But just to give you an example of some of these acts.
Mic check!
Mic check!
We're not going anywhere.
We're not going anywhere!
I'm just going to skip forward to some of the grievances that we have with Bank of America. Bank of America hasn't changed its fraudulent practice since the financial crisis. They are failing to disclose essential information to borrowers, misleading them into signing a mortgage they aren't able to pay off. Bank of America has also manipulated person financial estimation to justify doing all these mortgages. In recent years, Bank of America was accused of raising interest rates for absolutely no reason, no justifiable reason. This isn't quite as major. Like I said, they have the right to make their money, but it's absolutely ridiculous when Bank of America, who owns over $72 trillion in derivatives bets, just is greedy enough to charge its constituents whatever they think is, within their legal right. Bank of America claimed to its shareholders and customers that Bank of America Merrill Lynch merger was one of the Steadily Foundation. However, within the first quarter of accusation of Bank of America, posted a $15.4 billion loss. So once again, lying to the constituents and basically trying to get as much money as possible through the derivatives market that Merrill Lynch has such a great stake in. And this is the biggest gripe, the greatest grievance I have with Bank of America.
Tell it.
Bank of America has moved $75 trillion in derivatives bets from Merrill Lynch to a subsidiary insured by the FDIC, which basically means they're taking that $75 trillion in debt and moving it and placing the burden on people's savings accounts. Because the FDIC was put in place to insure up to $200,000 of your savings. So basically, Bank of America said, screw that. If these derivatives bets turn toxic, we're taking your money to pay off our debts. $75 trillion of it.
Boo.
And also, I'm sure you're all familiar with the TAR bailout. The $640 million was allocated to the top 5 financial institutions in this country, banks and investing firms. Well, since then, there's been over $7 trillion in unsupervised loans given out to these same financial institutions. $1.2 trillion going to Bank of America alone. And Merrill Lynch, now part of Bank of America, gave 22 times more bailout money to any other single company to bonus executives. Google indexed at $3.6 billion was given an executive directly from the bailout. So you're asking, what exactly can we do about this? We must act. Woo! Know legislation and know what as well as who you are voting for. For example, Elizabeth Warren, who is now running for senator of Massachusetts, who is trying to establish a consumer watchdog agency, which would protect people from these predatory loans and these predatory lending practices. Move money out of the banks and into a credit union.
That's right.
But not all banks are bad. Do your research. Basically, TARP fund recipients are guilty as charged. So keep away from Citibank, Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, all those investment firms.
Wells Fargo.
And I think most importantly, share what you know. Help create a more educated society and transparent marketplace. Knowledge is power. Don't let them take advantage of you. We are the fuel for their business. They rely on us for the money they make. They've been guzzling our money and will continue to until we either cut off their fuel supply or convict them of their crimes and reinstall sensible and fair regulation. That's it.
I want my money back.
John,
Banks got bailed out.
We got sold out.
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 Banks got bailed out.
Only electric utility!
Electric utility.
With its statement out being made $2.5 billion in 2007 in revenue!
Well, then I
State
think-
monopoly!
With the state monopoly.
It made $2.5 billion
It made $2.5 billion
in revenue in 2007!
in revenue in 2007.
The money comes primarily from 2 types of energy!
The money comes primarily from 2 types of energy.
46% comes from coal!
46% comes from coal.
This includes the Chester plant!
This includes the Chester plant.
It produces 7.5 million tons
It produces 7.5 million tons
of carbon dioxide!
of carbon dioxide
And 65 Dominion has to continue commitment towards goal.
With a new plant opening
With a new plant opening
next year in Wise County.
next year in Wise County.
No, it won't. No, it won't.
Heavy use of coal has increased the demand
Heavy use of coal has increased demand
for more strip mining,
for more strip mining,
mountaintop removal,
mountaintop removal,
and fracking.
and fracking.
All of these types of mining
All of these types of mining
are environmental nightmares.
are environmental nightmares.
41% of their energy comes from
41% of their energy comes from
nuclear energy.
nuclear energy.
This includes the nuclear plant in Lake Anna.
The nuclear plant in Lake Anna.
This plant is built on a known fault line.
This plant is built on a known fault line.
The original builder was fined $32,000
The original builder was fined $32,000
for hiding that fault line.
for hiding that fault line.
In March of 2011,
In March of
he
2011,
was named the seventh most likely
he was named the seventh most likely
to be damaged by an earthquake.
to be damaged by an earthquake.
On August 23rd,
On August
it was
23rd,
hit by a 5.8 earthquake.
it was hit by a 5.8 earthquake.
Dominion is waiting for approval to restart
Dominion is waiting for approval to restart
this facility despite its dangers.
this facility despite its dangers.
Dominion also released 13 million pounds
Dominion also released 13 million pounds
of toxic air last year.
of toxic air last year.
But Dominion provides
Dominion provides
18,000 jobs nationwide.
18,000 jobs nationwide.
CEO Thomas Farrell made over 100 times
CEO Thomas Farrell made over 100 times
the average employee of Dominion.
the average employee of Dominion.
Dominion is also known for their lobbying.
Dominion is also known for their lobbying.
Dominion has raised the rates in Northern Virginia
Dominion has raised the rates in Northern Virginia
to more than 10 times more the average
to more than 10 times more than average
kilowatt per hour in the national average.
kilowatt per hour than the national average.
Eric Kander is the largest recipient of Dominion.
Eric Cantor is the largest recipient of Dominion.
Dominion lobbied with $1.7 million in 2010
Dominion lobbied with $1.7 million in 2010
and $2.1 million in 2009.
and $2.1 million in 2009.
New laws allow state governments to regulate the costs.
New laws allow state governments to regulate the cost.
Dominion charges people for electricity,
Dominion charges people for electricity,
uses that money to lobby politicians,
uses that money to lobby
and
politicians,
then raise the rates.
and then raise the rates.
This is Dominion!
This is Dominion! Mic check!
I also wanted to add
I also want to add
that Eric Cantor,
That Eric Cantor,
I believe yesterday,
yesterday,
started to block the Congressional Insider Trading Act,
the Congressional Insider Trading Act,
brought to the House
brought to the House
by a fellow Republican of his,
by a fellow Republican of his,
to stop insider trading
to stop insider trading
in Congress,
in Congress,
because they can make regulations
because they can make regulations
that change the market
that change the market
and make a lot of money on it.
and make a lot of money on it.
Statistically,
Statistically,
it's been studied,
the
portfolios
portfolios
of Congress people
of Congress people
way outperform
way outperform
average Americans.
average Americans.
Though this has been known for a long time,
This has been known for a long time,
and this act has been being tried to be passed
and this act has been trying to be
for
passed
6 years,
for 6 years.
it hasn't made headway till now.
It hasn't made headway till now.
Due to good press,
Due to good press,
partly because of all the stuff we're doing.
partly because of all the stuff we're doing,
And it was looking really good to pass,
and it was looking really good to pass,
but Cantor has just stalled it,
but Cantor has just stalled it,
trying to send it back to committee.
trying to send it back to committee,
And if it holds over till next year,
and if it holds over till next year,
when election stuff becomes big,
when election stuff becomes
it's
big,
gonna die.
it's gonna die.
So that's just a little insight
That's just a little insight
into how cancer
into how cancer
and a lot of people make a lot of money
make a lot of money
and want to keep making a lot of money
and want to keep making a lot of
on
money
the backs of Americans
on the backs of Americans
through policies they enact.
through policies they enact.
Today we are here to audit the Federal Reserve.
To audit the Federal Reserve.
This building
This building
is one of 12 regional banks.
is one of 12 regional banks.
It is not actually
It is not actually
a bank in any sense.
a bank in any sense.
The Federal Reserve
The Federal Reserve
is a private corporation
is a private corporation
owned by the following families
owned by the following families
who convened on J.P. Morgan's Island Resort,
who convened on J.P. Morgan's Island Resort,
Jekyll Island,
Jekyll Island,
off the coast of Savannah, Georgia,
off the coast of Savannah, Georgia,
in 1913.
in 1913.
It was. It went down. No mic check. It went down as a duck hunting expedition. Where's the ducks? Let's see. John D. Rockefeller's man in the Senate, Nelson Aldrich.
John D. Rockefeller's man in the Senate, Nelson Aldrich.
Morgan senior partner, Henry Davidson.
Morgan senior partner, Henry Davidson.
Central banking advocate, Paul Warburg.
Central banking advocate, Paul Warburg.
National City Bank vice president, Frank Vanderlip. And MC staffer, A. Piat Andrew. Secretary of Treasury at the time. So we have two Rockefellers. Two Morgans. One Kuhn Low person. And one economist. Cut the mic. In this group, we find the essence of the Fed. Powerful bankers with powerful government officials working together to have the nation's money system serve their interests, justified by economists to provide the scientific and marketable gloss. Since 1913, since the beginning of this country, the value of a dollar was a dollar. You could bury it in your backyard, and you could keep it forever, and it was a dollar, was a dollar, was a dollar. In 1913, when this powerful conglomeration of families merged together and hid themselves under the Federal Reserve, which is really a private overextension, since then, the value of the dollar since 1913 has gone from $1 to like 3 or 4 cents. Essentially, your entire dollar has been eroded by inflation. The Federal Reserve is a private company. The product is debt. The product is your enslavement. To monetize debt simply means to keep you in a contract to keep you working for the Federal Reserve. All of the money is printed out of thin air. It is why we cannot lose, because the truth is self-evident, and a 5-year-old can tell you the difference between right and wrong. Hyperinflation producing money out of thin air is going to end us up like the Weimar Republic. In 10 years, what will this country look like? We will be taking our worthless paper in a wheelbarrow to buy a loaf of bread, like the end of World War II in Germany. It ain't worth a Continental. It's worth 3 or 4 cents at this point. We have to take it back. We have to audit the Federal Reserve. So I'm going to start at the beginning. There was 1913. There was the getting together of these families. That was foreshadowed for 1914, which was the cranking up of the war machine. Since the war would not have been possible without infinite, limitless supply of money. After 1914 and World War I and everything collapsed, then we had the roaring 20s, pump it out, pump it out, pump it out. It's all imaginary money coming from thin air. After the roaring 20s was the Great Depression. Then the Great Depression was not pulled out by the New Deal. The New Deal did not end the Depression. Unemployment was as high before World War II as it was in 1932. And incomes and productivity had actually declined. But the Federal Reserve was more powerful than ever, standing ready to fund yet another war. This is the big connection that I need you guys to understand. The Federal Reserve is funding the hegemony and the wars of the world that are not wars per se as they start or end, but is an empire. A Veterans for Peace member once showed me a map illustrating with thumbtacks all of the bases
that the United States has all over the world. There were red dots covered all over the border of Alaska where we were formerly bordering the USSR. Afghanistan and Iraq, packed. Iran right in the middle, not a base on it. They got to be terrified. And then Japan, loaded with red thumbtacks. Germany, the message is once we go somewhere, we never leave. And the Green Emerald City embassy in Iraq is the size of the Vatican. It's not, we can pull troops out of there all we want, but we're establishing bases all over the world. And the way that this happens, through the Federal Reserve. Since World War II, the U.S., I'm skipping something. 1944, the Bretton Woods Agreement. Really important. Please Google Bretton Woods. Okay, so they established the dollar as the universal reserve currency. So you cannot buy oil in any other currency. So when Hussein wanted to buy oil and sell oil with the euro, he was assassinated. So now that Iran is trying to do the same, God help them. Since World War II. Since World War II, the U.S. government has expanded its reach with a shocking voraciousness both at home and abroad. So at one war after another, the Cold War, the Korean War, the Bay of Pigs, the invasion of the Dominican Republic, Vietnam, endless involvement in the Middle East in addition to wars on Nicaragua, Salvador, Bosnia, and Haiti. As well as wars all around the world conducted in the name of the War on Terror. Can we call it a war on poverty already, people?
War on poverty.
After every major crisis, whether 9/11, the dot-com disaster in 99, or the economic meltdown Jonathan Lewis so eloquently just explained of 2008, the response is more monetary expansion. Crisis equals more centralization. Every time there's a crisis, they tighten up. So just a couple articles in the Constitution that you can take for what you will. I'm not going to call this unconstitutional, but you can hear what the country's supposed to be based on. So Article 1, Section 8. The Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and exercises, to pay the debts and provide, etc., to coin money, regulate the value thereof, and of foreign coin, and to fix the standard of weights and measures. I'm here to tell you the Congress isn't doing that.
Not doing
this
their
building
job.
is doing that. This building is one of 12. 2/3 of this building are underground. There's a salon and a gym. There aren't any windows. This whole thing is really creepy, guys. Okay, so we go on. Article 1, Section 9. This is one of the most important parts. No money shall be drawn from the Treasury but in consequence of appropriations made by law, and a regular statement and account of all the receipts and expenditures of all public money shall be published from time to time.
Oh, yeah.
It goes on to say in that same section, only gold and silver. If we had stuck with gold and silver, we wouldn't have the enslavement system that's in this country of the classes and the debt, but also the globalized entire picture, the entire planet. So we're supposed to have receipts. We're supposed to have receipts, and everything's supposed to be transparent. The Federal Reserve System operates in secret, keeping the details of their multi-trillion-dollar actions away from the American people. For example, when the Fed loans trillions to foreign banks, this is crazy. The details of the loan, including the exact amount, the collateral, the interest, and where the loans are given, is kept secret even from the members of Congress. No one knows about this stuff. It's completely unregulated. It's this quasi-legal, it's a completely illegal marriage between the federal government and the private bankers. And they own us. Everything that you see, we're all paying mortgages on back to banks. The banks own every building that you can see in America. And the reason that they do that is because they get money from the Federal Reserve that was printed out of the thin air. Not only do they print it out of the thin air, they charge interest on it. Fractional reserve lending means that for every dollar that they give you, they can charge you another $9. They're making 90% on every dollar. And so they own every single building that you can see, and it all came from thin air. They're a company and their product is debt. When they say build your credit, they mean build your debt, build your enslavement contract with us. That's what we're selling you. Their marketing is the dollar. That's their billboard. And the vehicle that they use to enslave us. I'm not being dramatic. This is the lender of last resort. This truly is, we are at the end of the road. Okay, so 15 trillion in debt deficit, growing exponentially. In 1907, that was the big crisis before 1913 that got everyone on board to go with this security regulating happy thing that's going to prevent boobs and busts, blah blah blah. J.P. Morgan was putting a ton of money into that campaign and into those banks to keep them afloat. Just like today, when he's funding 10% of the law enforcement in New York City. It's so crazy. Since treasuries, T-bills, China owns us. So yeah, basically
We're screwed.
Okay, this is the big picture. I'll end here. I really want you guys to go home and research this on your own. Please research the Creature from Jekyll Island. It's a great book. But basically, there's this thing called productivity data. And that's like where the actual tangible wealth is being generated by we the people who are supposed to own this country and this government. Tangible wealth is created in one of several ways. It's mined, it's grown, it's manufactured, it's intellectually manufactured, such as Steve Jobs, whatever. So the European Central Bank and the Federal Reserve, two institutions that are like the huge global banking cartels, they own all of us. And so they print out money out of thin air. We go to them to buy a building or take out a mortgage, and they own us and they lend us this money, and then we are their slaves. And then after that, they tax us, and they take this income that we have generated and we have worked for, and they take it and they keep it, and it goes up and up and up and up. But the big thing, the big connect, is between this building and the wars that are going on all over the globe. This bloodshed couldn't happen. This war, it's one big international central banking system. The Bank of International Settlements, BIS, over Europe and the Federal Reserve, our United States bank.
So many.
But it's not a bank. They're providing all the money for all the guns and all the bloodshed and all the wars, and it's all for their personal interest. A lot of these points I took from a speech that was written so that we would come here originally on October 15th. And it was written by Chris Dorsey. I think he has something to say about the Federal Reserve. That is all.
Good, Megan.